Hello and welcome you guys. I hope you guys are all doing really well. I looked back at my last video and I was like, man, I look so tired. Um, but I'm getting better. I'm getting a lot better today. I feel really good today. Yeah. So I'm gonna be trying to talk over some noise because there's some construction on the avenue and there's lots of crows. So please just bear with me. Today I just really wanted to talk about this plant here. This over here is Ilex aquifolium. Also known as the common European style holly, and it's just a really beautiful ornamental plant. This looks really good in Christmas themed arrangements, and its berries persist a lot into cold weather, into even midwinter. So right now it's the middle of the autumn season here, and I think this is the climax for this plant as far as visual appeal goes. So this is Ilex aquifolium. A little bit of the history of the plant. Its name's Ilex was originally the Latin word for oak, and then because of a similar leaf structure, the Holmes oak, which was one of the originally discovered oak species, was often mistaken for this plant, so they both got classified as Ilex. Another thing is the second part of this word, or this name, which is aquifolium, basically comes from the Latin root word acrifolia, which means sharp-lobed leaf. So this plant over here, I want to get into a little bit more of the botany of it. And these are dioecious plants, which basically means that you have male plants and you have female plants, and you need multiple plants within your neighborhood or your area in order to get this whole berry effect, in order to make viable seed. However, the female, which is the most commonly reproduced plant, commercially speaking, will produce these drupes by itself. It's just they won't be so viable. This plant over here is native to the Atlas Mountains in Algeria. It's native to a lot of southern and also western Europe, so parts of the Iberian Peninsula, the Italian Peninsula too. Has a cascading form to it. I did a video on this plant over here a while back, one of my very first videos. This over here is Prunus lauroceraceus, or the English laurel, and they have a very similar structure. Both of them have, as you can see here, really compact, sort of dark, opaque bark, and both of them are multi-trunked. So if you're going to prune these for a golf course or something, just keep in mind that naturally speaking they're multi-trunked. They are a little bit susceptible to blight. This one over here has a little bit of a bacterial infection, I can see. Man, look at those berries, isn't that just beautiful? Anatomically, the berries are also known as drupes. They have one stone within each berry. As I said before, they're really not edible. They lead to serious digestive compromise, so you don't want to eat them at all. Maybe keep this away from really small children who are curious with plants, who tend to eat fruit without knowing what it is. This is extremely toxic to cats and dogs, so maybe not the best choice for hedging if you have small pets. Has a cascading form to it. It's exceptionally cold hardy. It's cold hardy to about negative 35 degrees Celsius. This plant over here tends to do really well in areas that have good drainage. Another thing I want to say about this plant is it's evergreen. It's a broadleaf evergreen in nature. So much like a rhododendron, even throughout the snow, you'll just keep this leaf canopy to it, and it's just really quite striking and quite nice. Now it's starting to rain. If you want to prune this plant, I highly recommend pruning it back in the active growing season, which is usually the months of May, June, and July where I live. It is also quite prone to suckers. I have a couple more holly trees back, so this here actually produces really viable fruit. So I don't know if you can see, but I have a whole host of just miniature hollies here. Some considerations that I'll give you for this holly are to make sure that it's not super invasive where you live. Keep it under control. This here is becoming a problem in Oregon, Idaho, Washington, British Columbia, Alberta. Parts of Cascadia, this here is becoming more of an invasive species. A couple things I will say is this here is a really good plant if you want to supplement your local chickadee, flickerbird, and robin population. They really love these berries. Sometimes I've seen squirrels eat these berries too, particularly the European black squirrels. I think that's a correlation to this being native to Europe. And that introduced species of squirrels being native to Europe as well. Holly lasts really, really long in a vase. If you want to use this as a decorative crop or a decorative centerpiece on a table, this is a plant that persists really well in water. I recommend putting a couple of spoonfuls of white sugar per liter of water just to sort of feed the stems if you want to use them in bouquets. It makes them last a lot longer, or use a preservative such as Floralife. This plant doesn't necessarily require air layering, but if you do want to propagate it that way, it is successful, but it is quite slow. A couple other problems this plant has is it has a little bit of dieback. This one's not too bad, but if you prune it quite extensively, you'll have a little bit of dieback on the interior shoots and a little bit of necrosis at the site of division. If you want to encourage more flowering, if flowering is the most aesthetically pleasing part of this plant to you, I recommend planting this in areas with full sun that get very minimal air moisture. A couple more things I just really want to say about this plant. Sorry, I have a lot to say about this plant. Hollies are just so beautiful to me. So the second part of the name, Ilex, aquifolium, sort of relates to the Oregon grape plant, which is Mahonia aquifolium. And that's because they have a very similar serration to the margins. These are very pokey, so just keep in mind if you're going to prune it. Yeah. So some really good companion plants to this are the Prunus laurocerasis that I talked to earlier, and also Prunus lusitanica, or the false coffee plant. It does really well alongside other broadleaf evergreens such as rhododendrons and large-leafed azaleas. It looks really good against the nice blue star juniper, Juniperus squamata. It does really well next to arborvitae and smaragd, so some of the common cedars. This here I would not recommend as a privacy hedge unless you regularly prune it, simply because it's quite open on the bottom. I'm just going to go down in here and show you guys just how open this is. It's normal to have a little bit of dieback on the interior. This over here is the bark, so it's pretty nondescript, pretty good IT feature, very few lenticels. I don't know if you can see here, this is the laurel, it's a lot darker. A couple more considerations and just things I want to talk about this plant include this here is quite a heavily rooted plant, so I don't recommend putting it next to hardscapes and concrete. And you can even mulch your garden plants with a little bit of water with reduced leaves in it. Just let it sit for a while, and it really supplements nitrogen into the soil. That's a natural sort of mulching fertilizer. And one last thing I want to say that's pretty interesting about the morphology of the leaves is some of them have entire margins and they're simple in shape, and other ones have these serrations to them. This tends to be a characteristic of European hollies. It's much like the Symphoricarpus alba or the snowberry. It's pretty random in the way it's arranged, but it's thought that they have more entire margins and simple formed leaves without the barbs when they go into fruiting. I think this is just a natural defense mechanism. The animals that predate this plant and eat of the berries don't like the barbs because it hurts them. So the plant naturally, as a response, will take off those barbs. This is definitely more common in the female varieties of this plant. So yeah, that's holly. It's a beautiful plant. Highly recommend planting it. A few takeaways from this video are it likes really good drainage. It's very cold hardy. You need a male and female plant to be able to produce offspring in your own future generations. It makes a good privacy hedge if you can keep the canopy low down. Very few lenticels. The bark is very glossy and finite, and it's just a really morphologically interesting plant. I think everyone should have it. It's a very diverse genus of plants, and it's purely ornamental, not to eat, and there's so much construction going on behind me that I think I'm gonna shut up. But just have a good day, you guys. Stay blessed. I could talk on and on and on and on about this plant. Yeah, sometimes it'll actually bloom for you and create a secondary crop of berries in January and February too, if you get a prolonged cold season. So yeah, definitely more of a boreal forest type plant, becoming invasive in some areas. And without getting long-winded, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Stay blessed. Thank you for watching. I'll try to have a few more videos coming up for you guys soon. No promises though, I'm very busy. But yeah, stay blessed.